It's the end of the world as we know it. That's the title of a thing, or the hook for a song by the band from Athens, Georgia, REM. And I always think of that whenever I read chapter 21 of the Gospel of Luke, because Jesus is talking about the end of the world, or that's what it seems like he's talking about. The reason I say that's what it seems like what he was talking about, and in a sense that he was, is because we think the Gospel of Luke was written sometime after 70 AD. And that means that the temple had already been destroyed by Rome. And the temple in Jerusalem were the center of the world for Jews. And when it was destroyed, it was the end of the world as they knew it. Now, in the last couple of thousand years, many times the church has tried to interpret this as the end of the cosmic world, the end of planet Earth, that Earth would no longer revolve around the sun and our solar system would no longer be spinning around the center of the galaxy. This would be the end of the universe. I don't think that's what Jesus was talking about. And definitely Luke's audience would not have heard it that way, especially the Jews in Luke's audience. Even the Hellenistic Jews would have been devastated by the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple. And so all of the things that Jesus is predicting in this chapter are actually occurring or have already occurred by the time that Luke writes the gospel and the time people read it. So that plays with our interpretation just a bit. So when he says in verse 9, when you hear of wars and insurrections, do not be terrified, for these things must take place first. But the end will not follow immediately. Wars and insurrections have been going on against the Roman Empire, not just by Jews, but by others. And then later in verse 12, but before all these things occur, they will arrest you and persecute you, and they will hand you over to synagogues and prisons, and you will be brought before kings and governors because of my name. That's already happening. That is already happening to the audience that is reading the scriptures. And then in verse 20, when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, then know that its desolation has come near. That's already happened. The temple has already been razed and destroyed. So it's written in a predictive way, in the future tense, but Jesus is recounting things that have already occurred. So that's an interesting colorization for our interpretation. So what do we do with this? I think it is somewhere in the fact that it's between chapter 20 and chapter 22, between these teachings about religious pretension of chapter 21 and 22, when we're going to go into the Lord's Supper. I think that gives us something to think about. That when we let go of our religious pretension and we take on the humility of the Lord's Supper and of being a follower of Christ and being in relationship with God through the sacraments, then it is the end of the world as we know it. We can never be the same. It's a different way of being, a different way of relating to creation, a different way of relating to human beings. And that has to be grounded, though, in humility and the sacraments, I think. What do you think? Thank you so much for tuning in today. We really hope you are enjoying these reflections on the Gospel of Luke. Stay tuned, as we're going to have some special guests joining us soon as we continue this chapter by chapter journey towards Christmas through this season of Advent with the Gospel of Luke. If you haven't already, please click the subscribe button down below. Also, hit that thumbs up. That really helps out the video and increases our circulation and our proclamation of the gospel. And hit the bell. That way you're notified and you can stay on top of this devotional journey
through the Gospel of Luke. Again, we hope you are enjoying these reflections, and we hope that you remember that no matter what, God loves you more than you can possibly imagine.